My dad is too chicken. The glory of friendship is not the outstretched hand, nor the kindly smile, nor the joy of companionship. It is the spiritual inspiration that comes to one when he discovers that someone else believes in him and is willing to trust him. Glory of Friendship by Ralph Waldo Emerson. My memories of Senator Inouye are peppered with tales that were sprinkled on me by my aunties and uncles like confetti at a celebration. When Senator Inouye came to Kauai, they would oftentimes gather at my Uncle George's house with his closest of friends, Auntie Gert, Auntie Kay, cooking him his favorite foods, foods that I didn't even recognize, old world food that he couldn't find back in DC. And Uncle George's house was like a safe haven for the senator. They were, after all, like brothers. And I can fondly remember as a youngster running around my Uncle George's living room, and I can remember my mom always telling me to go say hi to Uncle Dan. And I always refused and ran away. But not because I was bashful. It's because I was deathly terrified of the man with one arm. The stories I heard about Uncle Dan, how he attacked machine gun nests, got shot in the stomach, and had his arm blown off. Could you imagine what that sounds like to a 6-year-old? The 442 generation, the Dan Inouye generation, is not like my generation. They never boasted, they never bragged, they never talked about their accomplishments. Nowadays, we're updating our status on Facebook or tweeting what we ate for lunch, what we did yesterday, what we're doing today, what we're doing this single moment. But the 442 generation had a grit about them. They had elephant hide for skin. And if you were blessed in being able to get to know the senator on a personal level, that grit and toughness was a facade for love and affection. As many of you may know, Japanese people are not known for wearing their hearts and their emotions on their sleeves. We show our love in different ways. There was a time when the senator and Auntie Irene came to Kauai to visit the Kilauea Lighthouse. After about an hour, I whispered to the senator, and granted this is before he gave his speech, that there was another community event that I had to be at, being that it was an election year. He slowly turned his gaze to me with that rascal smile, that smile. And he looked at me, and with his booming voice, he was a small guy, but he had this big, deep voice. He said, "Derek, you are losing political points with me." And he laughed, and he turned away, almost like a snub. And I didn't know if he was joking or not, but when the senator tells you something like that, you stick around. And so I did. Out of sight, I stayed for the whole event. I missed the other event. But I made sure to give him a hug at the end of the event, just so he would know that I had not abandoned him. And he came up and he said, "Oh, I see you decided to stick around." I said, "Yes, sir. I mean, you got kind of heavy on me, Senator." And with that same rascally smile, he pointed his finger and he goes, You were the one always running away from the man with one arm." He had a phenomenal memory, and believe me, he kept points. Now there's one accomplishment that I'd like to bring to your attention. Just stay with me because I'm almost done and it's going to make sense when it all wraps up. Not too many people know that the Navajo Nation made Senator Inouye an honorary member. And they gave him the title, the leader who has returned with a plan. The leader who has returned with a plan. Now the Native Americans have a tale about the first men and women that were on earth. Old man and old woman. walking around the earth. Old man turns to old woman and says, "Old woman, why don't we decide how this world is going to be when other men and women come?" Old woman said, "I think that's a great idea, but how are we going to do this, old man?" Old man turned to old woman and said, "Well, I think because I thought of the idea that I should have the first say in everything and anything." Old woman looked at old man. She nodded in approval. And she said, "I can agree with that, old man, just as long as I have the last say." Senator Inouye has given me tons of advice over the years. Advice about money, advice about politics, advice about campaigning, advice about weight. I mean, he was brutal. I was a little huskier back then. And every time, and Ron Kochi knows too, and so does Ron Sakota. Every time I would see him in DC, he would make it a point to call me cousin in front of his staff. He had a way with people. He had a way of making people feel important. And I'd feel so proud. I'd walk up to him, and his words would be, "Cousin, every time I see you, you're getting fatter and fatter." Senator's way of showing love and affection. I'm going to miss that the most. But back to this story about old man and old woman and his advice. One of the last times, not the last time, but one of the last times I got to share some time with Senator was at the 100th anniversary of Hanalei Bridge. And he addressed the crowd, and he said that in the 70s, there were these women that came to visit him. And they wanted to talk about a bridge that was falling apart. It was an impossible task, but the women of Hanalei made it happen. If you want to have tranquility, if you want to have peace on earth, if you want to have tranquility and if you want to have peace on earth, you listen to women. Senator, that's the best piece of advice I'll take with me wherever I go. On December 17, 2012, the Kawakamis were having lunch. The moms, the dads, the aunties, the uncles, the kids, the cousins, the grandkids, when we got the news that heaven had gained another angel. And we just sat there in disbelief. And we continued on in our meal. And I don't think we had grasped or absorbed what had just happened. Because in our eyes and in our hearts, he was always unbreakable. Made of the same material that legends are made of. And legends never die. On behalf of the Kawakami family, we'd like to thank the staff, the friends and the family of Senator Inouye for sharing him with all of us. The Kawakami family would surely not have seen the success that we have been blessed with if we had not had a friend like the Senator to open the doors for all of us. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you and God bless.